enjoy my work and you enjoy my frameworks, I'm running a weekly poker class. They have been extremely well received so far. In the classes, I go heavy into everything poker, in every spot. I talk about exploitative line, how we build dynamic ranges based off of the player that we're up against, where the pool's ranges are weak, where the pool's ranges are strong. We talk about timing tells, how we use our frameworks to break down ranges in every spot, where our opponents are vulnerable, how we can manipulate their range through bet sizing and timing, player profile, pre-flop, post-flop, mental game, you name it. If you can just find one or two concepts per class, you will have a meteoric rise in your win rate and your results will certainly benefit. Every class is 1.5 hours for $75 US. All the classes have a multiple choice interactive element to them. Whether you attend the live class or you purchase the recordings, you can follow along and track your progress. When you're ready to take your game to the next level, check out the Discord, send me a message. We'd be happy to have you, and I'm sure that after the first class, you'll agree. You'll be happy that you came. Take care, guys. What is up, YouTube? Play It Smart here, back for another video, and today I'm looking to answer the age-old question: can GG Poker Russian Cash 200s be beaten without rakeback or leaderboards? First, I just want to say that this is going to be my last public graph that I'm going to post, at least for a while. Posting public graphs have some negative consequences, but I think it's very important, particularly if you're going to be a poker coach. At this point, I've posted between 2 to 2.5 million hands across many stakes, with some of the highest win rates in every format, showing my strategies crushing from 2017 up to the current date. I also wanted to make sure to give my students confidence in our strategies in today's games, for which I played the 150k 100NL Russian Cash GG Zoom Challenge last year, along with the 100k hands challenge on stars at the 200s. And I'm finishing it off with the 100k hands on GG at the 200s, where we managed to beat the games for a very healthy 4.34 ED and EV. And hopefully we finally put this myth to bed of if the 200s on GG Poker can still be crushed. They most certainly can. This year, I will be forced to split my time with many responsibilities, and I have decided to play less poker and do more poker coaching. I will still play multiple times per week to stay sharp, and I also plan on doing the most solver work this year than in past years, so that I can give all of my students exclusive tools and weapons they need to crush their opponents and make the most money possible, which will be combining my exploitative expertise with solver work. Which brings me to solvers. So as you guys know, I come from the pre-solver era. I've been doing mental node locks in my head for many, many years. I have recently been using GTO Wizard AI more often in the last maybe 3 weeks to complement my exploits and fine-tune my game using a hybrid of GTO solver work with my 15 years of exploitative experience. I'm not looking at any GTO lines, but I'm very impressed with specifically the node lock feature. I think it's an excellent tool that, used properly with a strong exploitative mindset player, can certainly boost your win rate to new highs. I also think it's a great tool for me to show my students a visual representation of what's going on in my head during a hand. Obviously, I'm not nearly as precise as a solver node lock, but neither is my opponent. And so I just need to be better than him. So with that said, I will give you guys a free demonstration on what's going on in my head when I'm making some exploitative plays. And then I can use more data and visual representations and math using the solver to show you guys the information I'm trying to convey to you in a way that you guys are likely more used to, like looking at the solver. So with that said, we are going to pull up a hand and take a look. So this is a hand that I played a month ago for my 200s challenge on GG Russian Cash. This is before I was looking into any of the node lock features or anything on GTO Wizard, and this is a great example of how I'm going to show you what's going on through my head, along with backed up with what the solver is suggesting or what the solver would say, depending on some circumstances. So here we open. I don't even know if 8-6 suited is a open in the cutoff from a GTO perspective. And this is kind of important where it's still extremely important for you guys to understand that you guys need to think outside of the solver. The solver is a very powerful tool, but that's all it is. It is a tool. It is not the answer. And what I mean by that is, if the solver says to fold 8-6 suited here, that doesn't mean that 8-6 suited is a fold here, because the solver is telling you to fold 8-6 suited there, assuming that all three players behind you are going to play perfect GTO, meaning they're going to 3-bet you the correct frequency, so your hand's going to suffer, or they're going to play post-flop extremely tough, so your hand won't be able to realize its equity. Once you start realizing that and you say, okay, well, the button is a tight player, so he doesn't 3-bet his optimal range, he 3-bets a bit less, right there you're going to have an open. And then when you take into considerations like, okay, the big blind is not as aggressive as he should be post-flop, or he's a recreational, then this becomes a very profitable open. And it's not about, you opening here and you making a ton of money in this type of situation by finding this open. It's more about conceptually you finding all of these little edges all the time in every spot by understanding where you should deviate from the solver. So I open. If one of you guys want to let me know if 8-6 suited is an open in the cutoff, feel free. We get a 3-bet by a regular in the small blind. Makes it small here. I would assume a solver would defend this if this is an open, just especially due to his sizing and us being deeper. But the way that I would look at this spot in reality is, rather than looking at a GTO chart, I'm going to say, okay, who is my opponent? How good is he? How deep are we? How much edge do I think I have on him post-flop? That's what's going to shift this hand for me into a call or a fold. So, call. I think if this is not an open hand and you guys would never have this hand, let's just say you have in this situation 8-7 suited, which you guys would have. It's all the same. So we call, and the flop is 9-8 deuce with a flush draw. My opponent checks, and here I think that you can bet or check. Again, just imagine you have 8-7 here. I think many of you guys would find this bet. You could also check. Essentially, you're just betting for equity denial. If he folds a hand like ace-jack, ace-king, you're very happy, or he can call with a hand like that and you're still winning. This hand doesn't want to see too many turns, so a bet is completely fine. I think that you guys would find this if you had like 8-7. My opponent calls. So far, so standard. Turn is the queen of diamonds, and my opponent is going to check. Here, this is a spot that I think we can all agree is a clear check back. Our opponent is going to make Jack 10. He's going to make ace queen of hearts, king queen of hearts. All the flushes get in there. So not a lot of value to be had if we bet. However, I'm going to make a mental node lock and I'm going to bet. So I bet 1/3, and we'll talk about what the node locks are and what's happening later on when we do the solver work. And I get punished by I face the raise, which is the reason why everyone in this situation is going to check back a hand like this and a hand like 8-7. And so here we have a very clear fold, which I think everyone would find, but I do not. I say this is not a fold. I'm going to defend. Again, defending because I'm making a mental node lock in my head for what I perceive my opponent's range to be, and we'll talk about that later. So I call the check raise. River, we do not get a card that we could bluff him with, like if a 10 comes or a jack comes or another diamond comes and he checks, I could shove, or I could hit my 8 or my 6, but none of that happens. We get the queen and he goes all in. And here, at this point, anybody who does get here realizes that it's certainly time to fold now. But of course, I say, no, it's not. It's time to call down. I'm mentally node blocking his range. So we go for the call. And we see that in this instance, my mental node locks were accurate, and my opponent had the ace-king offsuit with the king of diamonds. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to illustrate this same hand using GTO wizard node locks, and we're going to talk about what's going on in my head through a visual representation, and let's see how that goes. So first thing I want to say is that I am not a solver whiz. I have not spent many hours using solvers. So if I make a user error in the solver, bear with me, but also try to understand conceptually what I'm trying to do, not the minute details, because that is not the point of what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so for this sim, all I've done is the facts, I made them relatively what they were. The only thing I've changed is I put 8-6 suited in the defend range from the in-position player. I shouldn't have opened it in the first place according to GTO, but I did, and I defended it. That's all I've done. So first, we're going to go through what the GTO response is here for both players. So he should be betting 36.6% of the time. We're going to give him one sizing. For this exercise, going into multiple sizings means nothing for what I'm trying to show you guys. So he gets one sizing. He should be betting 37% of the time. Anyone who's watching this video, I'm sure, has seen a solver before, so I don't really need to say much here. This is the response. He's going to check. My hand would mix. I bet. Again, I chose a little bit of a bigger sizing. I chose 33 or something. This is 25. Conceptually, it means nothing. Don't get lost in these small, minute details. My opponent is going to call, and the turn is going to be a queen of diamonds. So everything so far so standard. Everything's good. My opponent is going to check. And here, let's see if my hand ever bets. So here we can see that my hand, 8-6 of clubs, never bets at equilibrium. So a clear distinction between my mental node locked game and the GTO solution. Where I expect the huge deviations in solver to be are once I get check raised, my hand's going to be a pure fold, and then on the river, my hand's also going to be a pure fold, where I went call. So let's see what happens here and why that would be. So he checks, I bet. He's going to raise, and my hand, I would imagine, is a torch if I call. So as you can see, only the diamonds, which is the flush, is calling. Everything else, 8-6 of clubs, which is what I had, is punting. So, okay. I say, no, it's not. I'm going to call. So call. River is the queen of spades. He goes all in. And my hand was already a fold on the turn, so clearly it's an even bigger punt on the river. I'm losing 32 blinds. At baseline GTO, I played the hand like a whale. Now we are going to do the fun part, which is the node locking. This is what I'm doing in my head in real time while I'm playing as best I can in situations where I think my opponents are imbalanced. Obviously, I can't get it even as close to as a solver, but I don't have to. I just need to get it better than my opponents. And something very important to note when you're playing around with the node lock feature and a solver is you can get the solver to tell you any output that you want by changing the inputs. So I could node lock a bunch of things where it tells me that calling 8.6 makes me a genius, and you can manipulate any sim to tell you exactly what you want to see. And it's really important that that's not what you do. You don't want to use the solver just to stroke your ego. Instead, what you want to do is you want to give the solver your honest assumptions about your opponent's range and have it tell you in reality what would actually happen if that's happening. So all I'm going to do is tell you guys and the solver exactly what I was thinking, and then we'll get the output. And in this type of situation, all I did was in game, I had one macro assumption about this opponent, which was that he was not going to be balancing his checking range. And so his betting range was going to be way too linear and equity driven. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here, again, we have the normal sim, but now we are going to node lock his strategy, where we are going to say this opponent was betting too linear and too equity driven. So set his strategy. We're going to make very reasonable assumptions. First thing is his flush draws. We're going to say he is betting all of his flush draws. So we have a bunch of mixes and a bunch of checks that are going into the pure bet range. Okay. The next thing with the same understanding is I'm saying that he is betting to linear, which means that he is betting all of his top pairs or better. So all his 9x, his 2-pair, his sets are all betting. And lastly, he's betting all of his straight draws for the same reasons, too linear of a betting range. So he's betting all 7-6, which is open-ended, Jack 10 open-ended, Queen 10 and Queen Jack, which is a very reasonable straight draw. Okay. So that's the only macro assumption that I'm going to give him. So we are going to set the strategy. We're going to lock this. And we're going to see what that does now to our range, which it's going to make us bet extremely high frequency now. So the reason for that is now when he's checked, his range is so much weaker that we no longer need to be concerned about so many of the top end hands in his range. So we are going to see him check, and now our stab frequency goes to range. We're stabbing our entire range. Going to give it the sizing that I chose. It's still going to be range. If we can already bet for 40%, we can definitely bet range for smaller. And now you can already see with our hand how we have a clear bet. And you can just see how the game tree is completely different once your opponent makes the mistake of not balancing his range and betting too linear. And this type of situation happens all the time, right? The worse your opponent is, the harder it is for them to balance their checking ranges in different situations. Now we are going to go for the bet. And this is our opponent's response. He's going to call. Turn is going to be the Queen of Diamonds. And already you're going to see when he checks, our betting frequency is going to be extremely high. Again, due to now this opponent does not have any flushes, any Jack 10, any sets. So it really hurts his range composition. So he's going to check. We are going to change my sizing. I'm not betting 74. I just want to bet 1/3. We're betting 95% of our range. As you can see, 8-6 is now printing as a bet. So we are going to do that. And now he's not going to be able to raise very much at all here because his range is just so weak. And here I can make another node lock about his range where I don't think that when he's in this situation, he's going to ever find these one pair of queen hands for a raise. I definitely think he'll continue them, obviously, with the pair and the flush draw, but he's supposed to be raising them fairly often with just the one pair of queens. And I really don't think that humans are going to do that in this situation. They're going to be afraid of the sets, the two pair, the straight, the flush. So we're going to make another node lock against him. We're going to say very reasonable assumptions that when he has the one pair of queen type hands, he is just going to call. And here, I'll give him another sizing because I definitely think that when he does arrive here with the one diamond hands, he's going to pure raise them, not mainly calls. As you can see, ace king here with the ace of diamonds is 93% call, but players are going to raise here every time, essentially. So first, what I'm going to do is I'll node lock this, and then I'm going to give him a smaller raise size. So he bets. We are going to allow him to not just have an all-in. We're also going to say that you have a raise size to something like this. Okay, so now let's node lock what he's going to actually do within that raise size. So again, it wants him to, this is potentially what I've set, so I'm going to set the strategy. We are going to say that he is going to pure call with, so this is what it wants him to do, but I don't think he's ever finding the one pair of queen raises, so we're going to say he pure calls his one pairs, and then we're also going to say that he pure raises whenever he has the one diamond high card hands. So ace jack, pure raise, and ace king, pure raise. Okay. See any other hand class. 8-7, I think he will pure fold unless he has a flush. So those hands are gone. Ace 8, he's definitely going to pure fold. Those hands are gone. King jack of hearts, pure fold. I don't think anyone's going to be calling here with the gut shot on this type of board out of position. So king jack. I think if he has king jack with one diamond, he's going to raise, otherwise he'll fold. So we'll go offsuit, raise, king jack. Okay. So now his strategy looks something like this. We are going to lock it. Okay, so now what happens is when he does raise, you're going to see from the original sim that 8-6 was a torch if you were to continue versus raise, but once you've made these node locks and we've removed so many of his value combinations, you're going to see the difference in 8-6 of clubs goes from a torch to printing, essentially. And even wanting to raise as opposed to call just for equity denial purposes. And I swear in game, I remember thinking about raising because I thought that his range is what I'm showing you guys. And I wasn't sure if it makes more sense for me to call the turn and then play perfect on the river, essentially avoiding a diamond, ace, or king and call down, or if it makes sense to shove for equity denial. And so I have my answer here. Shoving is the clear superior play if I'm confident in my assumptions of my opponent's range. So now you can see kind of all these hand classes, how different the EVs are from the original sim, just when we change the ranges. So he is going to raise. My hand is going to call. River is the queen of spades. He is going to shove all in. We are going to node lock him because he's not going to check ace king here. So we say that he is node locked to shoving all in every time he has the one diamond ace king. I don't think anyone's ever finding sixes here as a bluff. Some of these inputs and outputs are going to be, there's going to be some things that are slightly off, and you need to be able to take a step back from that and zoom out and understand what I'm trying to show here conceptually. This hand has nothing to do with showing the EV of calling 8-6 suited on this board in this situation. The purpose of this hand is to just show how drastic the game tree changes based off of your opponent's range. So let's get what the final result is. So we're saying he now shoves. 8-6 is going to be printing, which it is. And yeah, so the takeaway here is not how much 8-6 suited or any of these hands are actually going to be winning in EV, because that's going to be subjective to A, the parameters that we give him, B, we're never going to, almost never going to be getting exactly what his range is, but that's not relevant because clearly we can see that in the worst case scenario, if my single assumption is correct about his general range, in the worst case scenario, even if we make a bunch of deviations from other parts of his range on different streets, we're still going to get into a profitable call. Even if we go from minus EV call to a +4 big blind call, that's still a huge win. And that gives us a ton of leeway and room for error with seeing such a clear winning call in this situation. And I thought that this would be a really cool way for me to show you guys a visual representation of what I'm trying to do in my head when I'm playing more exploitative lines. And it's really important here to note that it's not like I can get it even close to what is being demonstrated here. Generally, especially if I'm multi-tabling, I can get it to kind of a binary yes or no, meaning either I think that my hand is profitable and making money doing like calling, or I don't think it's profitable. So yeah, guys, I hope that you guys can appreciate and understand what I'm trying to show you with this sim and not get caught up in any small details that might be slightly off. And I hope that this shows you guys how much EV you guys are leaving on the table by not trying to play dynamic ranges based off your opponent and the situation and just trying to play a solver's range, because your opponent is not playing the solver's range. Even if he's trying to, he can't. So by default, you need to do your best to try to understand where is he making mistakes and then capitalize on it. And you want to do that using a hybrid of exploitative ideas and theoretical poker. I think that this is a really cool way that we can all look at poker together, where I can kind of include some of the more solver GTO guys into how you can utilize exploitative plays and see how they blend together and show it conclusively, not just with my results, but kind of walking you through the solver in an environment that you're more familiar with to show you what I am trying to articulate. And yeah, guys, because I'm going to be coaching more and playing less, I will have, I don't know, maybe 5 more slots available for some more students. If you like this video and you like how I talk about poker and this resonates with you, and you can kind of see that you're certainly lacking some ideas in your game, or you're trying to take your game to the next level, or you're trying to increase your red line or trying to move up to the next stake, I've prepared a small amount of testimonials from some of my current students who have been working with me for a while, and I hope to see you guys in 2024, and have a great day.